We'll start our discussion with a prayer. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Everyone together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So before we get into the discussion, is the sound audible and is it good? Or do I need to make some changes here? Okay, great. So we have been talking. Yesterday we started the fifth topic of our Gita Wisdom program, and that is, why do bad things happen to good people? So as we discussed yesterday, this is not a million, not a billion, it's $1 trillion question, I would say. From the beginning of the time, the philosophers, the Gyanis, and everyone has been wondering about, why me? Why do I have to suffer? What wrong did I do? Why somebody gets promotion even when he is not qualified? I worked so hard in my school for the whole year, but I didn't get the top rank, someone else gets it. And even though the person may not be that hardworking, and so forth. So we said, if you want to find out the answer for this, yesterday we gave you some examples, some case studies of those who could not, so-called theists. They wanted to find out the answer, but they could not on their own. So they became atheists. One of the examples was of Charles Darwin. Another example that we discussed yesterday was of Krishna, who wrote the book, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? So we said Bhagavad Gita can give us the answer to this question. And Bhagavad Gita has 5 subject matters: Ishvara, Jiva, Kala, Prakriti, and Karma. So ये जो subject matter है, this is related to the subject of karma. So before we start discussing about karma, we need to understand about Prakriti and Kala. So yesterday we began our discussion about the material world, and we'll continue our discussion today also. And I believe in the given time today, we'll be able to talk about Kala as well as the Prakriti, the material world, and we'll introduce about karma. And then next week, we'll dedicate a whole session for karma, so you have enough time to understand and grasp the subject. So as you said yesterday, Bhagavad Gita and scriptures define the whole creation, the total creation, comprises of spiritual world as well as material world. Whereas spiritual world is 3/4 of the total creation. And the material world in which we are living is just a very fraction, is just a 1/4 of the total creation. And this material world itself is huge, is literally unlimited according to our calculations. And in this whole material universe, planet Earth is just one insignificant planet in which India or Asia is one of the continents. And in that, we are in the state of Maharashtra and in a tiny place, Pune, and you are on your respective places and I am at my respective place. So this is what the total creation of the Lord is. And we summarize this discussion of total creation as follows. The material world consists of millions of universes, and it is only 1/4 of the total creation of the Lord. Material nature, as Lord Shri Krishna defines in Bhagavad Gita, is dukhalayam and ashashvatam, is a place of misery, house of misery, and temporary. Whereas spiritual world, it is defined as Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha, the word Vaikuntha itself means no misery. So question arises, why did Lord created a place of suffering. Why Lord had to create such a messy place? Is it because he's imperfect? That's what the scientists and the yeah, I would say the scientific community think of, and they're trying to fix the material nature because they think they can control the material nature and make it better. However, we have not found anything that they have done better. They have created more crisis, and one of the crises we all are undergoing today, not you and I, the whole world is under crisis because of COVID virus. And people or the scientists or the politicians are still debating what is the source. Some say it came from the what they call as a mm, wildlife which they sell in the market. Some say it came from the lab, biotech lab, and so forth. Whatever it is. But the question is, why did Lord created such a messy place? And to help us understand this, we had given you an example. Let's imagine if you want to make a city, if you want to design a city, well-planned city, you would need many things. You need accommodation facility, recreation facilities, education center, hospitals, and everything. Yet, despite all your best attempts, you will still find certain elements in the society, certain people in the society or the city who you will call as a bad element. In other words, they would not like to follow the laws of the city or laws of that place. And for such bad elements who does not like to follow or does not want others to live happily, you will have to have a separate place that is called as a prison house. So prison house is there to perform the basic minimum facilities to the prisoners. Prison house is not meant to have a comfortable living or a five-star dining or five-star living. It should provide basic facilities, and the purpose of prison house is to reform the prisoner. So the prisoner understands, some mistake he has done, he gets reformed and he goes back into the city and live it. So prison house is not of a permanent place. Prison house is a temporary place for the prisoner to, pay for his sins or the mistakes or criminal activities that he has done, so that once he reforms, he can go back. If prison house has to become a very luxurious facility, like a five-star hotel and an incredible dining facility, of course, nobody would want to leave the prison house. In fact, nobody would like to live in the city and work hard. So material world, similarly in scriptures, is compared to as prison house. And the need of a prison house, as we described earlier, today and yesterday also, is to, through the means of punishment, is to purify the person. So two purposes. One is punishment and second purification, so that when a person is put into a certain environment, he recognizes that he has made a mistake and he reforms himself. Similarly, in material world, we all, regardless of our faith, regardless of our religion, regardless of which species of life we are, every living entity goes through the four basic punishments: birth, death, old age, and disease. And the jailkeeper, there has to be a jailkeeper for the prisoner, and the jailkeeper for this prisoner is Durga Devi, the consort of Lord Shiva. The word Durga, Ga means Dur means very difficult, Ga means to live, to leave. So Durga means it's very difficult to set oneself free from the clutches of Durga. In other words, nobody can escape the prison house. You cannot have, you can't have a prison break. This is not possible. It's impossible. So what only one thing can happen? If we reform ourselves, and then only Durga would allow us to go out of the prison house. So that's the meaning of it. And Durga Devi has a trishul in her hand, which represents three kinds of miseries, additional miseries, which are said to be Adibhautika, Adhyatmika, and Adidaivika Kalesha. So, do you all agree that every living entity in this world, let's forget living entities all, let's talk about humans for a second right now. At least every human in this creation has to go through birth, death, old age, disease, and also these three Kaleshas. Adhyatmika because of one's own mind and the body, Adibhautika because of other living entities, Adidaivika because of natural disturbances, too hot, too cold, too much rain, and so forth. Just to see that you all are connecting to the point. Do you all agree to this? And if yes, so it has proved that this is a prisoner. This is a prison house where we all are acting as a prisoner and being put into a punishment to reform ourselves. So, what is the need of a prison house? Punishment and purification. So, we all acknowledge that we are going through the punishment. But what purification? What do I need to purify? I am a good person. Nobody could be as saintly as I am. I have never done anything wrong. That's what generally everyone thinks about. However, despite of however any one of us may be good or saintly, still we have six things to fight with. Those are the enemies of the soul. Krishna defines about it in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, Matsarya. उसके अंग्रेजी में और इंग्लिश में name is given on the slide. Illusion, pride, anger, greed, envy, and lust. Is there anyone who think that they have these things? Do you feel that you have any of these enemies that troubles you once in a while and so forth? So if yes, even one of the things, then we have a purification to undergo. And that's the purpose we are here in this material world. So first of all, the idea that is generally people have, Bhagavan ne hame bheja hai. Bhagavan ne hame nahi bheja hai. It's, of course, in one sense, it's correct. Bhagavan ne hame bheja hai to reform ourselves. But actually, prisoner, he violates the law of the city. And because he violates the law, he has a free will to choose. He violates the law. That's the reason the government of the city is forced to send him into the prison. So Lord is not happy to see us here. But because we do not want to follow the laws of the Lord, because of which we have been asked to come here and reform and understand that it's best for us to live according to the laws of the Lord, and that's our natural state of living. So what happens when a person comes to a prison house? This is another thing that we discussed yesterday. What happens to us when a living entity comes to this world? Or what happens to a person when he goes to a prison house? As soon as a person goes to a prison house, his dress is changed. He's given a prison costume, isn't it? Like you see in a photo. Looks pretty upset right now. So you change the dress. Similarly, when a living entity comes into this world, he is given costumes from 8.4 million species. This is a verse from Padma Purana. We had discussed this yesterday, so I'll not go into details. But this is what are the species. 9 lakh species in water, 20 lakh species are like trees, plants, and so forth, and the other remaining species are like that. So a living entity is given 8.4 million options to choose from. Of course, the living entity does not choose. It's the higher powers based on his activities, based on how sinful or less sinful gradations of his crime is given these species. We'll discuss this more when we talk about karma. So what are actually people trying to do to get out of the prison house? Prison house is not a permanent place. That's not a permanent place. We all understand that. So what are we trying to do come out of the prison house? First of all, the people don't know where they are. They think this is an eternal place. This is where we are supposed to live. Just on a side note, I'll tell you a little experience of mine. When I first got connected with ISKCON devotees, and just in the very first week, this is back in America when I was a student, and the very first week of my connecting with ISKCON devotees, there was a birthday celebration of one of the congregation member there. So they invited me also, please come for the birthday. And I went for the birthday celebration. And a college pass out, we have our own idea of how birthday celebration happens and so forth. So I was peacefully sitting and observing the whole ceremony. Everyone had gathered. And then the celebration was a little different. I will not go into more a lot of details of it. But I'll tell you one very interesting thing, which really gave me a huge cultural shock. What happened? They all are sitting there, and then they begin to sing a happy birthday song. When you cut a cake, you sing a happy birthday song. And the song they sang was something unique and special that I have never ever heard in my life. Even I could not have even thought about it. And they said, happy birthday to you. They didn't say happy birthday. They say, Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna, dear so-and-so. Hare Krishna to you. And now is the climax. May you never take birth again. And I was like, what? You never take birth again? May you never take birth again. And 3 times they repeated. And I was just wondering, never take birth again, because of my upbringing, I had an idea reincarnation happens, and we keep on coming back to this earth, this planet, and we keep on living in different species and different families. And now for the first time, I realized that they are talking about there is a life exists somewhere else also. May you never take birth again. And I was so scared with that idea. I wanted to run away, but I was sitting in the middle of the crowd, so I could not. So generally, people have no idea because nobody's studying Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is not taught in the schools or the colleges, so nobody has a clue. So what do people do to get out of the prison house? They do nothing because they have no idea about it. They just keep moving from one species to another species without any understanding and control on their destiny. Because most of the people today are atheists. They think the science is God, whatever science says is reality. And the best part with the science today, most of the time it keeps changing their words. They never stick to their words. They always are, sometimes they say one thing, another time they say another thing. They keep on contradicting themselves. Just like the law of, not the law, just like the gravitational constant. What is the value of the gravitational constant? I forgot something, whatever is a constant. But the point is, the gravitational constant value have changed so many times. Now the scientific community is debating, should it be called as a gravitational constant or should it be called as gravitational variable? So that's the point. But still, we are taught in our education system to believe in the science to be the ultimate truth, because of which people, without their understanding, they're forced to transmigrate among this 8.4 million species according to the type of activities they perform. Again, the concept of karma comes, which we shall discuss in a short span of time. So this is the verse that we quoted, and this is where we ended yesterday. Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartano arjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Would anyone like to read out the translation? You can unmute yourself. I believe you have the right to unmute yourself. Yes, you can unmute yourself, one of you, and can read out the translation. This is 8th chapter, 16th verse of Bhagavad Gita.
From the highest planet in the material world down to lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attained to many abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again.
Yes, Lord Krishna says here, a very beautiful section from the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks about material world as well as spiritual world. And Krishna says all are places of misery, beginning from the Brahma Loka down to the Patal Loka. Why? Because at all the places there is a birth and death takes place. And now we begin our today's discussion. We'll continue from this point. So the question comes, an obvious question that we all may ask or we may think about. Prabhu, you are saying scripture says we are in a prison house? No, it doesn't look like. I feel like I'm free, I'm independent, I can do whatever I want. And yes, this is not an ordinary prison house. This is an extraordinary prison house where we have no walls, where there are no bars to hide us or keep us behind. However, there are 3 chains that ties each one of us. And those chains, they are called as modes of material nature, they condition us and they restrict our independence and forces us to act in a certain way. And I'll explain you. And this is the most scientific and a beautiful subject matter from Bhagavad Gita. This is said to be 3 chains, 3 modes of material nature. And here is my question to all of you. If you are given an opportunity to select from which chain would you like to be tied up? And the options are gold chain, silver chain, and the iron chain. Which chain would you prefer to be tied up with? Gold, silver, or an iron chain? You can type in a chat box. I just want to see. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I see there are some kids also. So the kids have chosen chain and the adults have said, no, I don't want any chain. Okay, good. Thank you. So yes, we don't want to be tied up with anything, but we are forced to tie up with this. And how we can set ourselves free from these chains, we'll see this discussion today. So Krishna speaks about this subject matter in almost 3 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. The subject matter of this was introduced in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is a summary of all the chapters. And then 14th chapter is more detailed discussion. And then 17th and 18th chapter also talks about this modes of material nature. The point is, modes of material nature, which are called Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun, they control everything about us. They control our way of acting, our way of speaking, our way of walking, our taste for music, our taste for food, our lifestyle, in fact, our thinking, in fact, our determination. Everything gets influenced by these modes. And we'll give you some examples. And let's see if you really get, if this subject makes sense to you. Give me a quick second. All right. So, see the 14th chapter, verse number 5 of Bhagavad Gita. Sattvam rajastama iti gunaha prakriti sambhava nibadanti mahabhao dehe dehinam apyayam. Lord Shri Krishna speaks. Material nature consists of three modes: Sattva, Raja, and Tama, जिसको इंग्लिश में goodness, passion, ignorance कहते हैं. And when a living entity comes in contact with the material nature, which means when a living entity comes into the prison house, material world, immediately they get conditioned or they get chained by these three chains, or Sattva, Raja, and Tamagun. How are we bound in the prison house? We are bound in the prison house by these three chains. And a very beautiful example, again, it is given in scripture, is of a puppet show. I hope all of you have seen a puppet show. You know, you see the puppets jumping around, and those puppets are tied up with a very fine thread. And there is a puppeteer behind the curtain who's moving the hands, and the puppets are dancing. And when you look at a puppet show from a distance, it looks like puppets are acting independently. They are not acting independently. When you observe carefully, and when you go behind the stage or behind the curtain, you'll see there is a puppeteer who is controlling all the actions, all the responses of the puppets. Similarly, there's modes of material nature, as you can see in this beautiful picture. Behind the curtain, there are Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. Actually, this is Sattvagun, which is represented by orange. Rajagun and Tamagun, which is dark color here, controlling all the actions, all activities of every living entity. And these are called as three modes or chains of material nature. And like that, we all are put behind the bars. So we'll give you some detailed information about it, what they are. But before we get into it, just to let you know, the subject matter, if you understand, you can actually understand your own personality type. In fact, you can understand what your future looks like. You know, not only you get an understanding about your present and also of the past. As such is the depth of the subject matter. So let's see if you would be amazed with this science or not. So people in mode of goodness, how people in mode of goodness act, or what are their parameters that can be talked about? Just give me a quick second. Yes, people in the mode of goodness. People are classified in mode of goodness when, excuse me, there's some. Can I request all of you to keep yourself mute? Okay, sorry, because there was some little disturbance. I was getting distracted with that. Hare Krishna. So, what are the symptoms of mode of goodness? That is what we're talking about. Somebody is tied by a Sattva-guna chain. So, what are his symptoms? How can we recognize that? First, the person in mode of goodness seeks knowledge. He's always curious. He's always, inquisitive. He is a person who lives a life free of sin. That's a Sattva-guna life. Particularly 4 sins, prohibitions: no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. Do not get engaged in any of those things. These are the symptoms of a Sattva-guna person. These are the person who have a philosophy of life: be good and do good to others. They don't believe in an act of violence. They don't want to cause harm to others. This is Sattva-guna people. And they are satisfied, very important quality. They are satisfied and happy with their present condition. They are not greedy. They are not hankering for more. They're happy and content with what they have, and they're blissful in that, and have a sense of happiness and well-being. This is called as Sattva-guna. Okay, these are the people, these are the symptoms of a mode of goodness person. All right. People in the mode of passion. What are the symptoms of somebody who is in mode of passion? The prominent function is unlimited desire. Ye dil mange more. They just can never be content. If they earn 5 lakh per month, next time they want to earn 10 lakhs per month. And they always keep on aiming for higher and higher and higher. They want more and more and more. That's what passion is all about. Have unlimited desires. Second thing, because you are so greedy, you are so much hankering, then it leads to competitionness, and along with competition comes envy. When this person in mode of passion sees others progressing in life, they become very sad or envious of them. And another important feature of mode of passion, very strong attraction for opposite sex. They worship Lord. If they worship Lord, the whole idea is what's in for me, for personal gains. That's the idea of mode of passion. So these are some of the symptoms of mode of passion. High level classification. And similarly, mode of ignorance. What is more a symptoms of person who is in tamoguna? Photo speaks for itself. You can see what's happening here with the person. First sign is madness. Person in tamoguna will mostly make a wrong choice and he will consider the wrong choice to be the right choice. You have seen the smoke pack. At the back of the smoke pack, at the back or in the front, there is always a photo of somebody with the lungs, and there is a warning: the smoking is injurious. Yet the person thinks smoking is incredible. This is what is called as madness. Second sign is laziness. The three prominent signs: one is madness, considering wrong to be right and right to be wrong. Second sign is laziness. People in tamoguna sleep minimum 10 hours, not minimum 10 hours, at least 8 plus hours. Prabhupada says between 8 to 12 hours people sleep. I believe 8 to 12 hours or maybe 9 to 12 hours. These are symptoms of tamoguna, too much influenced by tamoguna. And they're very lazy because of that. And third is intoxication. In sattva-guna, people live a sinless life. In tamoguna, entirely opposite of sattva-guna, where people live an entirely sinful life. And sinful life is what gives them happiness. So here is my question to all of you. Do you know anyone who falls in any of the three modes? Can you connect with this subject? Do you find somebody who is you have seen and have met? You can say, yes, that person was in Sattva Guna, that person is in Rajaguna, and this person could be in Tamaguna. Yes or no? Have you seen people with these kind of symptoms? Okay. So Manish says, yes, myself. So I'll take Manish's point here and I'll speak a little bit about myself, what myself means here. Please listen to my question carefully. How many of you have seen the symptoms of Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna, all three, in different times or in different situations within yourself? How many of you have seen the symptoms of Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, Tamaguna among yourself? Yes, and that is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. I have not quoted the verse here. Krishna says, these modes, they are acting on an individual all the time. In other words, every one of us are tied with Sattva, Raja, and Tamaguna. And among these modes, there is always a conflict who will supersede each other. And who supersedes each other depends on the choices that we make. And I'll explain you this. So in other words, Krishna says that all of us are influenced by all the three gunas, Sattva Gun, Raja Gun, and Tamagun. And you can see in Sattva, Raja, Tamagun, which is the best mode of consciousness? That is Sattva Guna. Sattva Guna is said to be a springboard. If we cultivate Sattva Guna, from that Sattva Guna, we can actually understand the spiritual subject matter, and we can actually cross through this prison house. If we want to escape the prison house, first thing that we need to cultivate is more and more Sattva Guna and minimize the impact of Rajaguna and Tamaguna. To give you an example, I'll give you one case study, and you can explain to me, or you can write back to me on the chat. how do you think the person's response would be? So point is not only our lifestyle, but the choices, but the responses that we make, it's all dependent on these modes. And I'll give you one simple example, and let's see if you figure out how would a person respond and these three things. Before I go into the case study, let's give a classic example of three brothers who represent this Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. They come from Ramayana, and if you see an example of Vibhishan, Ravana, and Kumkaran. So according to you, who do you think among the three brothers is in Sattva? Let's do this little exercise and then I'll give you a case study. Okay, I'm glad. Vibhishan, you acknowledge sinless life, God conscious, that itself is an evidence that it was in Sattva. So who is in Rajoguna? Always hankering for more and, great attraction for opposite sex. Yes, Ravana. Never satisfied, never content. And of course, Kumbhakara represents ignorance. They epitomizes. These are the pinnacles of these three modes, where this fellow will sleep for 6 months and wake up for 1 day. And that's ignorance. So with that as a little background, I hope you got some idea of it. Let's do a little case study. And the story goes like this. There was some cap seller who would always go to a neighboring village to sell his caps. The cap, the hat. So one day when he was traveling to another village, he felt tired and he saw a banyan tree and he thought he will take some rest underneath the banyan tree. So he lied down underneath the banyan tree and he has his bag full of caps, which he kept it aside. And one cap he was wearing on his head also. And like that, by wearing his one cap and other caps which he had in a bag, he left it there and he went to sleep. He didn't notice, but on that banyan tree, there were a lot of monkeys. And the monkeys took the opportunity of this man sleeping. They came down and they took all the caps away. And now this man gets up and he sees that his every single cap has disappeared. And he looks here and there and he finds, oh, all the caps are with the monkeys. They're tearing it apart. They're playing with it. This is what determines what I earn for today. My livelihood depends on this cap. What would I do? So my question to you here is, what do you think, or how do you think a person in Tamoguna will respond to a situation where his things have been stolen? How a person in Tamoguna would react? Tamoguna is highlighted by madness, craziness, laziness. What do you think a person in Tamoguna would respond to? How would he respond? Mode of ignorance person. Yes, very nice. No, not anger. No, he will not be angry. That's not Tamoguna. Tamoguna is highlighted or characterized by laziness and madness, which means he will lament, he will cry, but he would not do anything to get the caps back. He would just complain and he would cry and he will say, oh, mere se itna bura ho gaya hai. But he will not do anything to rescue the caps. And that is Tamoguna. I hope you're getting the point. That is what is categorized as a Tamoguna person. Only problem-centric. Never would think of any solution. Am I clear? Now, how would the Rajoguna person? Rajoguna person is highly passionate. As I said, he's greedy, he's envious, he's angry. How a passionate person will respond when he sees his things are stolen? Yes. Bhaskar is correct. He would get angry. He will see whatever he gets on the ground and he will throw at the monkeys and he will try to hurt the monkeys. If he gets a stick, he will chase them after. If he gets a stone, he will throw at them. But do you think the monkeys will give his cap back because he becomes angry? No. Probably would not get any of the caps back. So that's a Rajoguna person. They just act impromptu. Particularly, they become very angry, they're short-tempered, and they just blurt out and they make the situation more hazy. Now, Sattva-guna person. I hope you're able to go through the flow of the example. Tamoguna will only complain. Rajoguna would become angry and would not use his mind. how to act at this point of time, and just would throw curses and tantrums. Now let's come to the Sattva-guna person. How would a Sattva-guna person respond to it? Sattva-guna person means he is wise, he is thoughtful, he will think for a second, he will be solution-centric, not a problem-centric, and he will think that, oh, these are monkeys who have stolen my caps, and monkeys are good imitators. So good imitator means I have my one cap with me, and monkeys are known for good imitation. If I take my cap and throw it away, there is a possibility the monkeys can also imitate me and throw the cap. So the wise person, the Sattva-guna person, would wear his cap, bring the attention of the monkeys, and lift the cap in his hand and then throw it on the ground away. And you know what? Guess what? What will happen? As the monkeys are good imitator, they will do the same thing. In the meantime, this person, the cap seller, would go and catch every of the cap, put it into the bag, and run away from the place. And that is what the beauty of Sattva-guna. It's solution-centric, and it resolves the problem in our life. So in other words, just to be happy, just to be going on with our life day-to-day basis, Sattva-guna is so important. What to speak about how challenges we can face if we are always living in Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So that's the idea about it. And let's see how these Sattva-gun, Rajagun, Tamagun gets affected by different parameters. So far, is it all making sense? Any questions on the subject? Well, if in case you have a question, we'll take a question in a short while. Let me just share some more details with you about this modes of material nature or modes of consciousness. So first thing, time. The Kala has time has a great influence on these modes of consciousness. The day is divided in such a way that, for example, the early morning hours are said to be the best time to cultivate Sattva-guna. So how do you cultivate Sattva-guna? If you engage yourself into spiritual activities, then you cultivate your Sattva-guna. The more you cultivate Sattva-guna, the more you get conditioned by Sattva-guna, and accordingly you respond to the situations and the challenges to life. And as we already discussed, with an example of a cap seller, I believe all of you would agree, being in a Sattva-guna is far much more beneficial for us than being in Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So that's the reason in all the spiritual forums, in all the scriptures, it is always prescribed to get up early in the morning. As early as we can get up, to that degree we can take advantage of this Sattva-guna time, and we can increase our Sattva-guna. To give an example, you all would have an experience. As soon as a sunrise happens, you will see that the activities begins to happen around, and your mind also begins to get agitated. Oh, mujhe office jana hai, I have to do this and that. Till the time sunrise doesn't happen, you're still a little pacified and calm. Have you had that experience with all of you? How many of you have felt incredible when you have gotten up before sunrise and you felt like, whoa, what a calmness and what a wonderful environment outside? As compared to when you woke up somewhere around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, probably with a headache and seeing, oh my goodness, so late, I have to do so much. So yes, so Sattva-guna, the early morning time, increases our Sattva-guna and is also important for our well-being. Passion is sunrise up to sunset. That is all about passion. That's the time of passion, which means that's the time where every living entity is working very hard for maintaining the family, for earning the bread and butter. So what is the time for Tamoguna? Tamoguna is a time of after sunset, when it gets dark. Is but natural, all of us begins to feel sleepy. So that is a time of Tamoguna. So Sattva-gun, Rajagun, Tamagun, they all have their application, but we should use it carefully, and primarily we should focus to cultivate Sattva-guna. So not only this, not the time has an influence. Similarly, the food, the kind of food we eat has an impact on our consciousness. It makes us cultivate Sattva-guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. In other words, the foods are also classified in Sattva, Raja, and Tamaguna. Let's take a look. 3 modes and of material nature and food. So what are the foods classified into Sattva-guna? This is 17th chapter, verse number 8. I'm just discussing some of the important and relevant features, but there are so many details about it given in Bhagavad Gita which I would encourage you all to listen to when you have time. This is 17th chapter, verse number 8. Ayusatva balarogya sukha priti vivardhana rasya snigdha sthira hritya ahara satvika priya. Would anyone like to read out? They can unmute themselves. Oh, okay, I have muted you all. Give me a second. You have the right to unmute yourself now and you can speak out the translation. Hare Krishna. Anyone is speaking?
Food, yeah. Food
Yes.
that increases lifespan and heart become purified.
So what is a food in Sattvaguna? Is a food that actually makes us more healthy, increases our lifespan. Next.
Gives strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction.
And what are these foods are? Please read out.
Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing
to the heart, which means fresh foods.
To heart. Okay.
Yeah, fresh fruits and vegetables and the milk products are said to be the food in Sattvaguna. That's the point here. So fresh fruits, vegetables, grains, and your milk products, they all are said to be food in Sattvaguna. They actually increases our well-being, makes us healthy, and is nutritious also. And another thing, which is freshly cooked, if any of these foods are freshly cooked, that is also comes in Sattvaguna. So what is Rajoguna food item? Let's take a look at Rajoguna food item. We'll not read the Sanskrit here. Let's go into the translation. Would anyone else like to read?
Food that cause distress, misery, and disease.
So food that causes distress, misery, and disease, which means, as you can see in the photo, extra red chili, too hot and too spicy is what causes upsetness to the stomach. Okay. What are the foods are like? Please read.
Such foods are too bitter, too sour, salty, very hot, pungent, dry, and burning.
Yes, which means very spicy, a lot of masala has been used, which causes difficulty in digestion. So these food may taste good for the tongue, but it's not good for the well-being and for the health. That is said to be in passion. In other words, when we eat foods like this, it increases our Rajoguna. And what about the Tamoguna food? Tamoguna food is, someone else would like to read?
That are prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten.
So which means which are stale and has been cooked long before, they all come under the Tamoguna, even of the previous classification. What else?
Food that are tasteless, decomposed, and putrid.
Yes. Which means you're all the category of canned foods. You know the canned foods these days you get on the whole market? All the packed food items, they all comes under Tamoguna because they're not freshly cooked and prepared. And third point?
Food that are consisting of remnants and untouchable.
So all non-vegetarian, all kinds of intoxication, they all come in Tamoguna, and these things increases our mode of ignorance. In other words, by kind of food, by kind of music, by kind of dress, by kind of lifestyle we are attracted to, we can easily understand what is a prominent mode of consciousness that we have. So this is about the food. I believe you'll be able to understand more about yourself with just these few examples. Let's take a look at the music. Music is very famous. We all love to hear music. So what is the music in the mode of goodness? What is the music in passion? And what is the music in ignorance? The music in goodness is the classical music that we have, the country music, the music of the natural sounds, the sounds of the nature. These all are Sattvaguna music, which pacifies, calms the mind. And of course, all the Vedic hymns and recitations, they all pacifies the mind and the heart, and you feel relaxed. These days, there are a lot of nature sound music is being sold out because a lot of people don't fall asleep. So they put on this sound of let's say, a waterfall or a flowing river, or the birds chirping in the forest, they plug on their headphones and listen to the sound, and then they go to sleep. What is the music in passion? The hard rock, the songs which are like these days modern day Bollywood songs, highly sensual in their lyrics, and they further enhanced attraction for opposite gender, makes one agitated and so forth. And ignorance, I don't know what kind of music is in ignorance. It's just full craziness. You know, maybe you can call it as hard rock, where people bang their head and whatnot. They do it. To give you an example, imagine, let's say you are driving a car, okay, and you're hearing a hard rock sound. How do you think your driving will be influenced if you're listening to very passionate, excited music? How your driving will be influenced by it? Any guesses? What do you think? How your driving will be influenced? Yes, rash, accelerate more. We'll be just zooming out. And that's the reason, one of the reason why so much car accidents happen or the vehicular accidents happen, either under the influence of intoxication or else we are being driven by this passionate music and we go into this whole, passionate mood and we drive like that. Imagine you're listening to Vedic hymns. Imagine you're listening to Hare Krishna Kirtan or you're listening to the natural sounds. How would your driving would be? Do you agree that your driving will be more peaceful within the speed limit and you will be less agitated? Even if you're stuck in a traffic, you will still be content. All right, such a nice, pleasant music should go on with the life. That's how the choices that we make for ourselves has such a direct influence on the responses that we create in different situations. Similarly, Lord Shri Krishna speaks about in 17th chapter about charity. Oops, where is the charity? Krishna speaks in 17th chapter about even the act of charity is in goodness, passion, and ignorance. Now, this subject matter people really don't get it when when you try to explain them. It takes a while, but I'll just give you a simple one-line sentence for it. What Krishna says about charity and goodness? Charity and goodness means the person who is giving a charity, he is not keen for his name to be announced. Many times you see if you go to a temple or any place, you have a big board. And any charitable organization, if you go, they have a big board with the names of their donors. So mode of goodness person is more concerned about his act of charity because he knows by that act of charity, I gain piety. And if the charity is done for a spiritual cause like Krishna consciousness activities, then it gives you spiritual credit. So in mode of goodness, a person is not concerned about with recognition. Would I be recognized because I have given donation? First thing. Second thing, mode of goodness means the person very carefully analyzes and understands the recipient to whom I am giving a charity is a bona fide cause. They are genuine people. They're going to use my charity for the right purpose for which it is intended. That is a mode of goodness charity where a person uses intelligence, thoughtfully gives a charity and is not after recognition. Mode of passion, he also gives charity. However, in mode of passion, the difference is the person gives charity not as an act of charity, but he does an act of charity to attract name, fame, recognition. Charity is a means for him to become famous. He likes to be recognized. He wants to be popular. And that's the reason he gives charity. That's a mode of passion. And mode of ignorance, how the charity is done in mode of ignorance. The person may give money or whatever donation, but he do not think to whom am I giving. Generally, mode of ignorance charity means the charity is given generally to the wrong person. And because of charity, the person commits further more sinful activities, and the person who is giving a charity gets further sinful reactions. So these are goodness, passion, ignorance. Like this, there are many, many things, qualities mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, which talks about how modes influences. In essence, by understanding the modes, what will happen? You understand who you are, what kind of person you are, what is a predominant personality type you have. And once you understand this, then I know that I need to work further. I need to move forward. And how do I need to move forward? I need to accept and bring in more of goodness in my life by changing my lifestyle. And that's the reason Krishna says in 13th chapter, verse number 22, Purusha prakriti stohi munkate prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangasya sad asad yoni janmasu. 13th chapter, 22nd verse. Would anyone like to read the translation, please?
The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he mates with good and evil among various species.
Yes. So Krishna says like this, we are always caught by the modes of material, the three chains, and accordingly, everything in our life gets determined by the choices we make. And according to the choices we make, we get entangled either in tamoguna, or rajoguna, or sattvaguna. So sattvaguna is also a bondage. Yet sattvaguna is a platform from where we can actually set ourselves free. So, in summary, about the modes of material nature, the conditioned soul, all living beings in the material world are conditioned by the three modes, every one of us. Second, by the way, do you all agree with this? Do you recognize this? We can have that thing first, if you are able to understand. Do you see this? That all of us are dictated by the modes of material nature? Yes or no? Whoever we are, maybe Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, everyone, even the animals and other living entities. Okay. Second, the soul comes in contact with a particular mode of material nature and acts accordingly, being conditioned. In other words, our responses are determined by the modes that we are in, that we have already established with an example of the cap seller. Third, we seek happiness on the material platform according to the modes we are conditioned. Is it making sense? Which means if somebody is in a mode of passion, then he would like to do things which gives him happiness on that mode of consciousness. For example, in a Sattva person would never find happiness in intoxication, gambling, or meat eating like that. Sattva person would not like to go to the pub and bar and spend late night evenings. However, for Tamaguna, that's the highlight of his life, to engage in such activities. So you're seeing the difference? So according to the modes we are situated in that mode we seek out for happiness. And the fourth, and thus we are forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born of the modes of nature. Just like a tamaguna person, how much ever you may educate him, but because he's addicted to smoking, as soon as he sees a smoke shop, by default, he will be drifted away or drifted to the smoke shop and he'll purchase a pack of cigarette and smoke it. Is this all making sense? Do you acknowledge this? And this is why in the beginning of the course, I said Bhagavad Gita is the best self-help book. This is all the things from Bhagavad Gita. And I also said Bhagavad Gita is actually a universal book which talks about universal facts and realities. And two more points. Thus, our pure spiritual nature is perverted by the impure desires born of three moods. In other words, our desires are also gets conditioned by the moods that we are in. And the last, in this way, the soul is forced to take birth in this material world again and again. So what is the solution? How can we change our desire and how can we set ourselves free from the modes of ignorance and passion and rise to mode of Sattva? The very first thing is to change our desires. And our desires gets influenced by the association we take. Again, I'll repeat, if you want to break through this bondage of Rajoguna and Tamoguna and cultivate Sattvaguna prominently, we cannot unless we change our quality of desire. How can you change the quality of desire? Because you're forced to act according to Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Please try to understand it's not within your capacity. It is only possible when we seek out an association of people who are in Sattva Guna. Once again, it's only possible to change the quality of our desire when we seek out the association of people in Sattva Guna. That's the reason the association of saintly people is so essential, which is not, which is not at all given relevance or importance in today's life. It's said in English, association is contagious. Jaisa sang, vaisa rang. If somebody wants to become a smoke addict or an alcohol addict, it's pretty simple. He doesn't have to go to a shop. He has to go to the association of people who smokes regularly. He has to go to the association of people who drinks regularly. By default, he'll become a smoke addict and alcohol addict. So similarly, if we want to set ourselves free from the influence of the Rajaguna and Tamaguna, we cannot do it on our own. But we can do one thing. Just seek out an association and take as much as association of Sattva people, and also acquire knowledge, particularly regularly read wisdom literatures like Bhagavad Gita and other books based on Bhagavad Gita that Srila Prabhupada have translated and commented on. These things will give you knowledge and then will change the quality of desires. So we come to an end on the subject matter of modes of material nature. This is just an introduction on this topic. When we discuss Bhagavad Gita, we have an elaborate discussion for almost 2-3 hours, but I can't go into too much details right now because of the time limitation. So let's take out some FAQs that we have on this modes, and if you have a question on it, then we'll take your question. First, how are we bound by these modes? How are we bound? Why am I bound by this Sattva Gun, Rajagun, Tamagun? Whatever mode mode is prominent in you, it's all because of our free will. Every living entity is given a free will. Now that free will determines your destiny. That free will gives you an opportunity to choose. If somebody goes to the bar and he drinks, it's his free will to choose to go to the bar and act like this. So it's all because of our choices that we have made in the past and the choices that we are making in the present, according to which certain modes of consciousness are prominent in us. And that's how we get entangled. Second, are the modes of passion and ignorance bad? It may look like, because of the discussion that we have, the Sattva Guna is best. Passion, Rajaguna, dangerous. No, that's not the point. Passion and Tamaguna both have their own utility. Ignorance is needed if you want to fall asleep. That's the nature of ignorance. Similarly, passion, a little bit passion is needed when you have to work, when you have to do your earning. However, passion and Tamaguna becomes bad when we are driven largely and mainly by passion and ignorance. Our passion and ignorance becomes a predominating mode in our day's activity, then it is dangerous. It's just like you're driving on a highway, which says drive at the speed of 60, but you overspeed and you drive almost double the speed. And you know that the chances of accident increases. And if there has to be an accident, there are very less chances of survival. So passion and ignorance have their own utility. But when we overdo that, when we get over engaged in this passion and tamaguna, then they become detrimental. And the last question, who control the three modes? Who is the controlling deity of the three modes? And the controlling deity of the three modes of material nature is none other than the jail keeper, the jail in charge, the prison in charge, and that is our respected mother, Durga Devi. By the way, today is a Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who are a part of today's program. Hare Krishna. So Durga Devi is a personality who is actually the controller of the modes of material nature. And through this, actually Durga Devi is not happy to see us bound in this world. Durga Devi, through her Trishul of Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika, Klesha, and the four miseries of suffering of birth, death, old age, disease, actually she inspires us, or she tries to wake us up. My dear son, this is not the place, this is a miserable place. She tries to inspire us and encourage us to leave this place of temporary and go to the place of eternity. Asatoma Satgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityuma Amritam Gamaya. And that's her duty, to reform us, inspire us, and give a desire within our hearts so that we can go back to the spiritual world. With that, we come to a conclusion of a very, very important subject from Bhagavad Gita about Prakriti, material world, which has two functions. First is punishment, and second is purification. We have already discussed in the beginning today. And two things that happens to us when we come into this world. So you can remember that P square and C square, or 2P, 2C formula. So second, so two things, purpose, and what are the things happen to us when we come into this world? Costume. We acquire different bodies. And second, we are bound by the three modes of natural nature. So with this, we conclude our subject matter of material world or Prakriti, and we come on this topic of Kala. I will just take maybe 5-10 minutes to discuss this out. Before we get into the subject matter of Kala, any questions? Anyone has anything? You can unmute yourself and speak up if you want. Okay. I see the kids are asking. Kids, I'll come back to your question after a while. So let's have the seniors have the opportunity first. So, any questions? Sujata is trying to speak something, or what is that? Okay, maybe I'm not able to hear. So here is my question to all of you. Do you agree now with whatever you have understood all this while that Bhagavad Gita actually teaches universal principles? Bhagavad Gita is actually a science, the real science, teaching us the universal principles of who we are and what is this whole life all about. Yes or no? Pooja has a question. Okay, I'm glad at least. So please do take study of Bhagavad Gita seriously. I hope you all have the copy of Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada. If not, maybe it is available online so you can order for yourself. Question by Pooja. Many times people say God made them that way. How to respond to that? See, God did not make anyone like that. God has given us a free will. So this is just another way of blaming the God for one's own defects. Those who are successful, they don't say that God made them, because people are always keen to take credit for all the good they have and they do. When they do a mistake, they always want to pass the blame to someone else. So you can always talk to them about the free will. There is an opportunity to change. And there is a case study which was done by a group of scientists in America. Maybe it'll take a little time pertaining to the question that Pooja have asked. If others are interested in that, then I'll leave a voice note on the WhatsApp group later on. It's a very interesting case study that talks about how to say that we are conditioned, we have no free will. No. In fact, that case study proves that we have a free will and we can exercise that. It's a scientific evidence. So I'll share that after a while. Let's come to a subject matter of Kala now. What is Kal? Time. How many of you have seen Mahabharat? And Mahabharat की शुरुआत में वो चक्कर घूमता आता था. मैं काल हूँ. I know, and that Kal would begin to speak about what's happening in Mahabharata at this point of time and so forth. And Bhishma Pitama, Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Bhishma Pitama, my dear Bhishma Pitama, why did we have to suffer so much? Why this all had happened? And Bhishma Pitama, lying on a deathbed, he said, Sarvam Kala Kritam Manye. Hey Yudhishthira Maharaj, what all has happened with you, in my understanding, only Kala is responsible. And what is Kala? Who is Kala? Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Kalosmi. Kal is nothing but my energy. So Kal, if you think about time, time is one thing which is irreversible. Agreed? You cannot buy a second that has passed away with any amount of money, with any amount of hard work. You can never recover that. And second, Kala, or time, destroys everything. With time, we all are growing old. Everything becomes destroyed with time. And these are the features of Kala. Let's take a look at the characteristics of time. First, Time flows in three phases. There are three phases of time: past, present, and future. It is not linear but cyclic. That's what our Vedic time order teaches us. There's a Satya Yuga, there's a Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga, and then Satya Yuga, like this. Similarly, our life is also cyclic. We take a birth, we die, and then again take a birth. And like that, it always keeps going on. Time destroys everything. Just like I forgot, it is not linear but cyclic. You see the change of seasons. Summer, there is a winter, then there is a fall, there is a spring. It all goes on in a cyclic order. So time is cyclic. Time is not linear. Now, time destroys everything. Yes. It's a beautiful photo. Maybe a photo of a woman, maybe in her 30s or 25, and the same woman, maybe at the age of 70 or 80. Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 27th verse, Krishna says, one who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, O Arjuna, you should not limit. Time is all powerful and time destroys everything. What are the characteristics of time? It waits for no one and cannot be rolled back, irreversible. And it produces 6 kinds of changes in our body. What are those 6 kinds of changes which a living entity undergoes? And this is called as a lifetime cycle. Birth, growth, maintenance, byproducts, grow old, that is dwindling, and finally die. Whoever it is, even Brahma is within the purview of this time. Even he has a lifespan, although it's tremendously huge, but even he has a lifespan. And thus Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Kaluspi lok shakrat pravadho lokan samhartam iha pravatra artepi tvam na bhavishyanti sarve ya avasthatha pratyanikeshu yodhaha. Bhagavad Gita, 11th chapter, verse number 32, the Supreme Personality Godhead says, Time, I am the great destroyer of the world. With that, we conclude a brief introduction to the subject of Kala. And now we come to the subject matter of karma. With the question, why do we have to go through the cycle of birth and death? Reincarnation has been already discussed. Why? Is God responsible for our happiness or distress? Is God responsible for everything that is happening to us? Or there is something else? And that something else is called as law of karma. Karma in a simple language means as you sow, so shall you reap. And Krishna in Bhagavad Gita defines karma to be such an intricate law that nobody can figure out how it functions. But it functions very finely and nobody can escape the laws or the clutches of karma. So with that, we have come to a conclusion for our today's discussion. I didn't want to hurry through the topic just to finish it today, so I just went through a little slowly. So you have a time to grasp it, to think about it. And next week when we meet, we'll be concluding our Gita Wisdom session. On coming Saturday, we'll have one evening dedicated for law of karma, how the law of karma functions, and how we can set ourselves free from the influences of karma. How we can set ourselves free from the influences of modes of material nature, we already spoke. Take association of saintly people, take association of things that are in goodness. Read wisdom literatures, Vedic scriptures, which are in Sattvaguna, not even Sattvaguna, they're beyond Sattvaguna. So like that, we cultivate Sattvaguna. Similarly, how we can set ourselves free from the laws of karma and what is law of karma, all this will be discussed next week on Saturday. And on Sunday, we'll have the final discussion and the title will be Yoga for Modern Age. In other words, how do we apply what all we have learned so far into practice? How can we bring about a necessary transformation? Because Bhagavad Gita, after all, is a book of transformation. So far, you've got some knowledge, but how do we apply the knowledge? How do we realize that knowledge? And how do we get transformed? Which is the objective of the Bhagavad Gita, that we shall see on the Sunday. And with that, we'll conclude our Gita Wisdom course. So thank you all for joining us. If you have any comments or any questions, You can please share now. And if you just don't mind, can I just know who all are